we're going to go way into the past now to talk about, because you're talking about there's that element of overcoming awkwardness, but then at a certain point, like if you arrive at that consensus with your DM and your players, like, hey, we're interested in a story-based RP heavy thing where we really allow ourselves to feel what these characters are feeling. Do you remember what it was, what the process was like breaking into that level of attachment to Keyleth? And did you have to revisit that at all with Bo in the second campaign?
Oh, sure. Well, our home game when we were playing, just kind of casually, it was casual. It was just like every other DM, Dungeons and Dragons game that you probably have at home. We would laugh, we would make inappropriate jokes, and it was all kind of a little bit more slapsticky. And then we had a moment in our home game when Ashley Johnson's character Pike died from a glabrezu. He was bisected in half. And it felt like everything changed, our perception and our reality of what our game was, because we all were in tears. Laura was I'll never forget her being on the fetal position on the floor, and she was just lying like this, and Matt looks over to the table and he goes, "Laura, you're next. Vex is up next." And she looks up from the ground and she goes, "I don't know what to do." And we're all like crying. And then I think that was when we realized, oh, we feel something for these characters.
Yeah.
And I don't think we had fully had the realization
That's awesome. So it snuck up on you.
It kind of snuck up on us. Like when you stop and you all look around and you're like, we're crying over imaginary people that do not exist. And I think that's when we started realizing how important it was. And then when we switched to the stream and made it weekly, and then doing on the show, honestly, one of the best things that the show gave us was it forced us to have to focus.
Yeah.
Because when we would do our games, normally they would be maybe bi-monthly, and we would block out a Sunday or a Saturday and play for 8 hours. And those days were incredible, don't get me wrong, but that allowed a lot of room to, this person's going, I'm going to go veer off in the kitchen, get some snacks, and then side conversations might happen. And, it happens, and that's fine. We were also socializing, so you would lose stuff from time to time.
Yeah.
But forcing us to put the phones away, allowing us to fully be immersed, that really started cementing who these people were even more, and we weren't waiting 2 months to visit them again.
Yeah.
So that was really when Keyleth started becoming this person in my head, and it felt like my imaginary best friend that I knew just as deeply in some ways, but was also still learning who she was. So that was kind of a journey. When we switched to Bo, when we switched to the new campaign, we did a few session zeros at home to kind of start learning who these characters were, because you can have an idea in your head, but then you sit at the table, and as I always like to say, let's see what comes out.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you might think a character is going to be one thing, and then you get in there and you start playing them, and you're like, oh, they're this. So, once again, there's still a little bit of that learning curve. What was actually interesting when I switched with Bo, I had a few weeks where I started getting reticent about her and who she was, and if I wanted to continue on with a character like that, because I always talk all the time about how much I learned from Keyleth. Keyleth taught me a lot. Keyleth taught me how to be a better person, 100%. Because Keyleth is far more compassionate than I am towards people. and she has empathy. She, you know, and truly cares. And like I think there were several instances where Keyleth was trying to understand and empathize with someone where I think Marisha might not have had the same amount of patience. So I actually, and then I kind of got to understand people like Keyleth a little bit better in real life. She has a ton of insecurities and self-doubts and anxieties. And it kind of made me relate and understand people that I think I would get frustrated with in real life.
That's awesome.
And she made me a better person. She was genuinely kind and good. For as much shit people, that was always the irony, is that for as much shit people gave Keyleth, she was just trying to do the right thing. She was always trying to figure out if what she was doing was the best thing that she could do. Then I switched to Bo, who has deep-seated anger issues.
Yeah.
And she has these walls that she throws up, and she will be the asshole first and wants you to know that she's an asshole, because she's assuming that if you get to know her, you're going to think she's an asshole anyway, so she might as well control that situation.
Right.
Is where Bo is coming from. And there were a few games that I would leave from, and I would kind of have a little bit of this like anger and frustration, and it was like pissing me off,
Yeah.
inhabiting her. So I started getting oddly nervous, and I was like, do I want this person in my head for potentially the next 3 years?
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, so much was defined by Keyleth that I did get nervous. And then so Bo ended up teaching me a whole new set of lessons of, I'm not defined by this character that I am playing. I can separate it. And eventually, with more time, and it's already happened, this was, post thoughts, that I would think I would find empathy and start understanding people like Bo, a little bit more. And it has. And I was looking for her growth and where she would change. And I wanted to start her one way so that we could see where that would lead. But yeah, there was a hot second where I was like, is this oddly toxic?
Yeah.
In a weird way.
Well, there's a beautiful thing you just touched on right there, too, which is the idea of starting a character in one place with certainly the knowledge imparted to you from running through an entire campaign to 20th level, but the idea that characters do change.
Yeah.
So wherever you start a character at first level is not where they're going to be at level 3 or 4 or 5. And what level were you guys at in campaign 1 when you fought the Glabrezu, when Pike died?
Probably like 7.
So think about the idea of going through seven levels of adventuring. That's remarkable. And then this event happens that totally changes everybody.
Right.
And I don't know, there's a beautiful thing in improv, we talk about this all the time, which is that when you're playing a character, even something like really different from yourself, right? It's still always you. My favorite metaphor for character playing has always been that characters are translucent and not opaque, where they're like stained glass, right? And in this metaphor, it's sort of like you, the person, are the light behind the stained glass. And what the character is it's always still you, but the colors and shapes and the way things are arranged changes and the light shines through differently.
Yeah, it's a great metaphor. Yeah.
Thank you. But that idea, too, of like so it's this weird thing where it's like every character you play is weirdly an examination of
a piece of you.
A piece of you, right? And it's almost like me if, right?
Yeah.
When I've played lawful good characters, chaotic good characters, chaotic evil characters, it's always, to me, the challenge is always like, oh, how do I get there?
Yeah.
Right? I play this chaotic evil pirate character, and I've joked with my brother about it, who was running that campaign, where I was like, yeah, what if you were born a genius in the lowest like class of a society with no class mobility, and you were abused at every level. You were in the Navy, committed atrocities and war crimes, and the only chance for social mobility was to be a criminal. And it's like, oh, okay, like looking at these ways of like, okay, I'm taking me and I'm adding this voice and I'm adding this physicality. Let's bring down compassion by 40%.
Right.
Let's bring up impulsivity by 75. And you're just kind of messing with these dials until suddenly you get a character. But what people don't realize is, like, even in D&D, the reactions are always genuine. They're just filtered through this stained glass.
Right. And I think touching on what you were saying with, like, you're the light, I think that's what freaked me out for a hot second about Bo. And I was almost afraid I was tapping into the worst parts of me.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I want to continue to explore this? And, you know, my metaphor, I say the same thing, like, you still have to, it's still you. And, you know, matter cannot be destroyed or created. It can only change shapes. You have to have a fuel. And so that's still going to be coming from somewhere inside in your own life experiences.
Yeah.
But I think that the beauty and the joy of that, and I deeply believe in a lot of the therapeutic benefits of tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
Because it does give you a safe space to explore some of these facets of you in a relatively consequenceless environment.
No, I mean, all that role-playing stuff does bring you into these places where you get to explore what would happen if you reacted differently.
Yeah.
And having that space for exploration is so important. What, in our mind, does a good faith effort to play a chaotic evil character look like?
That's a really good point. Do you want to go first, or
I'll pitch out my thing, which is I actually did this. My brother ran a maritime campaign.
Cool.
It was all like Age of Tall Sail, and I played a pirate who was a chaotic evil pirate.
Cool.
And he, playing someone on the end of the spectrum, there is chaotic evil, the cartoon version, and then there's chaotic evil, the realistic, grounded version.
Right.
This was a guy who...
You were an operating sociopath. Needed a crew, wanted to make money. You got to have food. You can't actually murder every single person you meet. You actually can't do that. No.
You'll get killed. And his backstory as a pirate was he was a young man of low social class in a very highly stratified society. His only means of mobility was to join the Navy. He committed war crimes in the Navy because he was instructed to. Because he was of low birth, he never achieved higher station. When he got back, he said, I've only been trained how to commit crimes on the high sea. But I have a 20 intelligence.
You had a John Rambo pirate.
Yeah.
I drew first blood.
So his whole thing was like, every inch of this world is violent, and the parts that aren't violent,
you don't understand.
I don't understand. Yeah. And also the parts that aren't violent are benefiting from the parts that are.
Yeah.
The parts that are comfortable because people go out and do
it's
the
great
violence.
Because if some goody two-shoe wants to come along and convert you, it's not like they're going to do it like day one. Like, in fact, if anything, they're just going to get a knife in their back. But what they can do is, over the course of a very glorious character arc, you can both balance each other out.
Right.
You show them the wrongs of the world and how to make it, and and show them that the world is not as glorious or sparkle-filled as they once thought.
Yes.
And then your good character understands that, can make the other one understand that not the whole world isn't crap.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think too, a lot of times I will see a misconception online of people going like, oh, any character who has a justification and a cogent ideology can't be evil because evil has to be insane. Right. Yeah. And you go like, no, my character has reasons in his history and in his personality to hate people. That's evil.
Yes.
And the fact that he's got it all tied up in a bow
Right.
doesn't mean that it's not evil to want to harm most
Right.
people.
And he's not just a walking stabby ball, you
No.
know. It's just literally it's bringing and the only time that gets interesting is when you start to have those moral choices in which your chaotic evil character has to decide, am I going to go along this because it's even though I don't agree with it, am I going to go along with it because it fits my needs? Like that kind of a thing. So.
And he was very much a part of the party. He moved along. He was with all the people like, well, we all need a ship, don't we? We all need to, like doing his whole pirate thing. And I remember the first time that his alignment came out, it was in a battle where there were these like little like Artful Dodger street urchin kids that had betrayed us. We'd paid them to guide us through the city to the harbor.
Yeah.
They betrayed us to like sell us out to these older thieves. So one of these older thieves showed up with one of these little urchins who had like ratted us out, taken our money, and then told on us. And there were other urchins around kind of like watching.
And you just went to town.
My pirate character, there was the big military threat, the soldier they had brought. My character sidestepped them, stabbed the kid, and went, "That's the cost of telling tales." And
there you go.
And all
Dead
the other
mental.
characters went balked. But the thing is, that's not the same as like, I'm going to burn down every village I see.
Right.
It was this story moment where they all saw how twisted he was.
Yeah, and it's you made it unsettling.
Yes.
Which is fair for when you want to do chaotic evil. And for me, like my example of what a good faith chaotic evil character is, and I think this describes perfectly how you were playing yours, it's that not everything they do in the game has to serve their alignment directly. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to show off their chaotic evilness every opportunity that they can get. In fact, if anything, it should serve the story. It can be unsettling, like you said, but it shouldn't stop the flow of the game.
Yes.
Like there's a pacing. Pacing is still super important in games all the time. Like if you're basically putting chaotic evil walls up every single time the party's trying to move, that gets tiring.
Yeah.
And
it's true too. Like the party's paladin sometimes is just having a sandwich.
Yeah.
He's not doing lawful good stuff every second of the day.
He's just eating lunch.
He's just having lunch, man. Like your chaotic evil guy can like have a meal. You don't have to.
That's such a good point. So there's more truth in that statement than anything. It's brilliant.
Oh man. Well, yeah. So I would say, So what does a good faith effort look like? And like also like what's the point of that? Because like it was very disturbing to play a character who like attacked this like not the kid had like tried to get them killed, but it was still a child. It's an incredibly evil act.
Yeah, it's incredibly evil.
It was like disturbing to me to do it. But so the answer is like, what is the value in playing a disturbing character?
Right.
And to me, I've played a chaotic evil pirate. I also played this lawful evil giant who was kind of like wanted to serve tyrants, literally like a bootlicker. Like he wanted to be like the strong arm of a powerful.
He knew he was right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's one of those things.
And I think that there is a value on a personal level of playing. If you have someone who's like, I want to play an evil character, it's okay to go, why?
Yeah, why? What do you want to get? And more importantly, actually, I would say more than why is say, you want to play a chaotic evil character. Okay, well, how do you think that chaotic evil character is going to serve the story?
Yeah.
And how do you think it's going to complement your party infrastructure? Because if they can't come up with, if they're like, well, I don't want it to complement the party structure at all. In fact, I want it to go against the party structure. Then you're already seeing the red flags that you need to have those conversations about.
Right.
Because now you know how that character is going to play that.
And it's okay to give someone a no. It's okay to say, if someone's like, I want to oppose the party. And if you go, no one else is into that, you're allowed to go, hey, respectfully, this might not be the game for that concept.
Right, yeah.
So let's think of another concept, or maybe this is not the game for you.
Yeah, and that is what you just said right there is literally it is the kindest, gentlest way to say that your fun is fun, and I understand and respect your fun, but if your fun is not everybody's fun, then go find your fun.
Yes.
And have fun.
1,000,000%. Go have fun, however you do that. And but I think if people come back, like for me, playing evil characters, especially there's playing comedically evil characters, but then I think playing actually evil characters, like, why go to that weird dark place?
Well, because you did that. That's the whole point of Bloodstone Keep.
Yes.
Is to all play atrociously evil characters because that's the game you're playing and that's the joy. Again, it's about the story that you're driving in. You know, because it's the difference between a fantasy demon and a horror demon.
Exactly, and there is that element too of when you're playing, like in the moments that I've gotten the chance to play evil characters, I abhor evil in day-to-day life, but evil is made out of selfish impulses. Yes. And when you get to play a character, you go, what would I be if I always listened to the most violent version of myself?
This is also this is the reason we have horror in our lives, is because it is much easier to observe and be passively a participant in horror than to live horror. You know, under no circumstances do I want any of my stories to ever come true ever.
Yes.
But under every circumstances, I believe that we all become a little more human after every atrocious tale has been told.
I love that. There's this literally, like, you know, my brother introduces this like maritime, all pirate, you know, done all this incredible amount of research. Also, my brother is like the kind of dude when he does something, he's all out. The research has been done. Yeah. It's like, you know, the amount of like care and awesome and love and attention to detail. And so we start going around the table and it's like, this is a pirate campaign, first and foremost. Now, I had a character idea that wasn't fully a pirate, but as they started to go around the table and someone was like, I want to be a ship's cook. And then someone's like, I want to be a merchant. And I start looking around and I'm like, everyone's picking a different. And I could just see, you know, he was doing a good poker face, but I could see Griff becoming like crestfallen. No. And so it got to me as the last person and I was like, I'm going to be the most piratey, like pirate.
Totally. And when he was describing that world to me, you know, I think the thing is, you know, the truth about D&D, I think, is that like those games where they're silly and they're fun are awesome, right? For me personally, it's the stories that I like. It's the character arcs. It's the growth of character. So if you enter a game and you're like, I'm like The Rock, I'm Dwayne The Rock, the Barbarian, then like that's funny. And if you're playing a one-off, great. But like there may come a time where you're 10 sessions in and suddenly you like there's a really important meeting with some king. You're like, I'm Dwayne the Rock. Like, why did I name myself that? You know what I mean?
It's
like,
so true. I can't tell you how many PCs. Look, if you're playing a joke, no joke can survive session after session after session.
Yeah.
Like the thing I always tell people that want to play funny D&D, and I think anyone who's watched Dimension
funny D&D is fun.
It's great. Funny D&D is great. The way you play funny D&D is the same way you write a funny sitcom, which is you make characters in a comedic situation, but that are deeply committed. Yeah. You know, it's
Yeah, and you know, and I think like for me that some of the most profound experiences I've had playing D&D have been really with Hassan, but have been we worked to get to that place, you know, and like there's a point in our campaign where my character is like basically this rebel who's leading a revolution against this kind of oppressive colonial power, and a bunch of my fellow rebels who I had kind of incited, I founded the Sons of the Storm, which later became the Children of the Storm, because this like awesome Yashadi woman was like, screw you, like you didn't like your revolution isn't for me, and Hassan had to go like, oh wow, like fuck alliteration. But like, you know, like Sons of the Storm sounds cooler probably than Children of the Storm, but like what does that mean? And I remember having a long conversation with Genevieve where, you know, because one of the things I love about 3.5 is the amount of multi-classing. You know, and Hassan kind of got to this point when we're 17th level now. So Hassan like had this point where like he's got this sick magic armor, he's got his family sword, you know, he's got his Griffin Scarbeak, who's really my dog Max. And he kind of came to this realization like I am the knight I set out to become. Like there is really no one I can't beat in a sword fight. And what does that mean? And he saw Griffin, he saw your brother's character, August Tarandri, the Archmage of Azahar, being able to kind of like teleport here and there and do things that were a little more profoundly useful. Mm-hmm. And Hassan went like, maybe I've been doing the wrong thing the whole, like, magic allows you to be there to help the person. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter how good I am with a sword if you're on the other side of the city.
Yeah.
I can't save you.
Yeah.
But if I had magic, I could. And that kind of led him to this whole other arc. But when that was happening, Genevieve's character, who is Hassan's lady love, mm-hmm. Was like, you're pursuing power, and power corrupts, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I, as Nick Marini, was like, yeah, that's like, what is Hassan's? Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, I want to be powerful. To be good is to have things that are going to get in your way. I'm not going to do certain things mm-hmm. that this bad guy is going to do. Mm-hmm. So I have to be more powerful because I'm fighting with one hand behind my back. And it was just such a deep, like, and like, you know, D&D can be super awesome, it can be super fun, and it can also lead you to these kind of profound, like, I've cried, like when